You're asking me, where's the money? Where's the money? I mean, I don't know where the money is. I've never been good with figures, you know that. I don't know anything about math. It was never my good subject.
Doug, I got a question for you.
What would that question be, sir?
I said, Doug, where's the money?
Where's the money?
Where is the money?
Where's the money?
Where's the money? We should never do a rap. Although I got to tell you that I just listened to a preview copy of Bruce Springsteen's album, and there is a rap on one of his songs. He doesn't do it, but there is a rap. So Springsteen brings it in. I'm going to bring it into this show. Sometime, somewhere along the line, I'm going to rap on this show.
And that is the day the world will end.
It is probably the day that my mother even stops listening to this podcast. That day.
Hi, Mrs. Woodbridge.
This is the episode. This is the show where we talk about startups in the mobile space and how they are going to make money, if they can or if they cannot make money. We take one company a week and we decipher, we dissect their business model and see if they can actually do something here. And today, no different. We ask the question, where's the money?
We do this for free.
We do this for free. They don't pay us. We don't get paid for doing this. I often wonder, would anybody pay us for our opinion?
Well, one day we'll have to do a Where's the Money on Tether.
No, there's no inward looking here. Somebody else can do that. Somebody can do a Where's the Money for blogs. I don't even want to know. This week around, we are diving into a company that's been in the news lately. Of course, we picked these guys. This one is Bump. It's a company created by Dave Lieb, and with some big investors in Andreessen and Connolly. These guys know what the hell they're doing. And Dave's company, I actually had the fortune of sitting down with Dave Lieb and maybe like over a year ago to talk about
the show.
Yeah, to talk about Bump. And it is one of the top 10 apps of all time on iTunes. 70 million users, 70 million downloads. And the controversy around them this week, very quickly, is that they went from a very small app that did one thing very well. You bump two phones together that were running this software. Didn't matter if it was an Android device or an iOS device or a BlackBerry device. You bumped them together. It transferred your contacts. It was beautiful. They blew that product out, got a little complex, allowed you to exchange photos, songs, apps, got a little bit deeper, created a connection between the two devices so that you could text each other. It just got into this big thing, and then their last version, version 3, stripped out all that stuff and went back down to the old sharing of contacts, sharing of photos, and the controversy has erupted. You should see the number, like all the 1 stars that are in reviews now on iTunes of Bump. It's like, garbage, don't install, garbage, don't install. And our own Doug Soltis wrote a little bit of a review, said, praising this. Didn't you, Doug?
Yes. Well, I praising, but then also praising the realization that, and they obviously know it as well, the idea that there are kind of phases in apps' lifecycle growth. We've been talking a lot about the minimum viable product on Untether recently. And I think they went back to realizing that their minimum viable product was very similar to what their ideal product was. And honing that experience was better than adding a bunch of features that no one else used. And some of the numbers that they had in terms of 2 million photos are being shared every day through Bump, but only 7,000 calendar events. So I guess those 7,000 1-star ratings were just people using the calendar sharing.
It's true. I mean, one of the things that really impressed me about Dave was the fact that he knew, and they know what people are using this tool for. Not only that, but through their API. It's an open API that people can integrate into their apps. They have some amazing statistics about how people use this product. And with 70 million users, plus they're the folks using the API, they have an idea of what people are using. So you're right. The vocal few may not be the majority. Yeah, that's probably true, Rob. The vocal few may not be the majority because there are only a few of them, not the majority of them.
Yeah, I think you're looking for Nixon's silent majority.
Yes, exactly.
But
yeah, the very vocal. But you came to the conclusion that this is something that you praise.
I praise realizing that the app development for startups moves along a process, and that they were pretty ballsy. But I think my original title for it was Bump Gets Ballsy, and then I decided to change that. But the idea that they're gonna it wasn't as if they had features that weren't necessarily working. They just had features that were distracting people from the core reasons why people use Bump. And for an application that is only useful when you can meet someone else who has the app, it's very important that it stays top of mind. So I think one of the points that he made, that the two things that people really love it for, which is the contact sharing and the photo sharing, were being left unnoticed to new users because there was a bunch of different things they could share with, rather than sticking to one or two that they would use every day. So I think it's a really strong move. I think it makes just in the way that they've cut features, the app itself is it definitely passes the mom test. My mom could easily use that application, and hopefully it'll lead to greater retention in the people that are downloading it the next time Apple promotes it in a TV spot.
Well, one of the things that when I spoke to Dave, I remember this very, very, very well, is that and the interview's up there on Untether.tv. Just Google or just search up there Bump, and you'll find it. But what he says very clearly is that his goal was to make Bump an everyday app. He understood that it wasn't an everyday app; it was an occasional app. That when you're at a conference or you bump into somebody, quite literally, and you want to exchange contact information, you used it then. But he wanted to create something that you used every single day. And that's why he added all these features on the the calendaring bump and the song bump and the app bump. So it retrenching and going back to what they did best, which was contacts, and then they added the photos, was somewhat a surprise for me because then it brings them back to that not every day, the occasional user, especially with services like Instagram or like Path or like Facebook, sharing so many photos. 2 million a day seems like a lot, but it's really not compared to what's going on in those services.
Yeah, but it's also the stickiness of it too, because you're not just uploading photos to a social
you're exchanging.
You're literally trying to give someone something very specific. So, and especially with contact information as well, the things that they're sharing has a greater level of import. I think in the post that I'd written, the video that I linked to that Scoble did, he talked about how the usage rate in Japan is insane, simply because it's the easiest way to share contact information, because like Japanese character restrictions on phones and how difficult it is to type that information in. So, but
it's the same thing on an iPhone. I mean, it limits the amount not over Wi-Fi, but just over 3G. It limits the size of the file that you can send, right? So, or upload. So, I mean, there's a use for this, and especially if I want to send somebody an Android who's using Android OS, I want to send them a photo. This is the perfect kind of exchange tool, because it doesn't matter what device anybody's using.
Yeah, because I think the important thing is that it's a software solution attached to a server, not some sort of connection protocol between devices, which makes every user that they have more important in terms of data, information, the API use they probably get from that. But I just want to go back to so where's the money in this? Because one of the most interesting things that he said in the interview was that they have a monetization strategy, but they can't turn it on until they hit critical mass. And 12 million monthly active users is good, but when you were talking about what the initial download rate was, the percentage of monthly active users to the amount of people that have tried that app is really, there's a high disparity there. So getting for everyone to say, hey, I need to do X, and have Bump come top of mind, I think is really important, which is why I think that what I wrote, while still correct, requires a second part, in that I think they made exactly the right move in prioritizing the features that everyone uses to keep retention, sustain growth, and things like that. That being said, if Bump's really going to make an impact, if they're really going to make a lot of money, if their monetization strategy is going to work, which we don't know what it is yet, but I think we can toss around some ideas, Bump has to be the way that you share everything with a person who's right next to you. And maybe that means getting to 25 million people only on photo contact sharing, and then very slowly turning one feature on at a time and having everyone evangelize that, so that everyone can very slowly educate themselves up the adoption curve. But I think at the end of the day, for Bump to have a huge impact, I can't say, oh yeah, well Bump's great for contact sharing, but now I use Donk for my calendar sharing because sometimes I just need to donk my calendar to someone. Obviously, so it means someone right now is immediately just registering donk as a URL.
Or somebody else is like, oh, you got my idea.
I know.
You outed us. You know what? Maybe that's the way that they do it, but I think that there's a logical progress that they're going through here. Is that I think that they got too far away from their base, and it becomes unruly and very expensive to maintain a piece of software the way that they were going for the amount of activity that they were transferring. I kind of like if you go down the vein where the revenue is, where if you go down the vein of the contact and creating that connection, and this is what Dave was talking about. It's like creating that connection to the user or between two people, and extending that so that when I bump you, Doug, that you and I are now totally connected. I don't even have to be in proximity to you anymore. I can send you photos, regardless of where you are. I'm not next to you. I'm not bumping. I'm just sending you photos. You know, it could be like the iCloud service that Apple's doing with photos. But I can send you photos just like that. And I like that connection. And in order for them to really accelerate, I think that they have to round out those services that complement the contact, right? So what is it that I can do? Calendar events, you and I may never share a calendar we do, but I may never, ever set up a meeting with you. You could be a family member. So it's not as relevant as what other services are around the contact, the connection between two humans.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on a great point. It's not about all the different types of data. It's the types of data that create that immediacy, and I don't even like to use a terrible term like serendipity. So the one of the features that they've kind of added now that they've streamlined it is that when you bump someone, it will let you know if you have any common friends between you. Which reinforces the use case. And I completely think you're right. I just never I don't want to see 3 or 4 or 5 apps start up and say, oh, we're like Bump for X. I think that at the end of the day, Bump has to kill that. And if going to this stage and really evangelizing these core features and then slowly adding on without getting overburdened is the way to go. I think that's right, but I want to switch now to the idea of like how do they make money off of that?
Well, before we go, we're gonna get there, but I got to tell you that having Connolly and Mark Andreessen as investors in this company, they raised a whole lot of money. There's some smart people thinking about this, and you can appreciate that they're thinking about the revenue, but they're also thinking about the user experience to begin with as well. So I don't discount a guy like Andreessen or a guy like Connolly. So, but how do they make money? How are they going to do this?
Yeah, what's the secret strategy that they're not telling anyone until they have the user base, right?
Yeah, well, and I'm interested. I mean, so we put some ideas out. Just like 2 seconds before we started recording this, so they're not validated, but I mean, how do they make money? Can they make money?
So the most interesting thing that I learned from watching I believe it was the Scoble interview that I embedded in the post was the fact that they already have 200 applications using their API, and when you think about how their service works, because it is a software solution that basically sends the information back and forth between the servers, so the two devices aren't really doing anything to each other. And then you have 200 different applications using their API to do that. I'm pretty sure they're tracking some really interesting data on where people are sharing, when, what they're sharing. And just, I think one of the examples that he gave was you can tell what similar music tracks a Bump connection has. So if you have in the same way that you have similar contacts or friends, it might be shared interests.
Yep.
Leveraging that information or charging for its use, I think, would be really, really interesting.
You know, there is something to be said about that, but it's also could this be an ad model or and I'm not talking about display ads because I do not like display ads, but I'm talking about inference, about you know all the data about everything around you. You know your friends, you know your social graph, basically through the contacts, through the photos you're exchanging, through the places that you've been. Because when you bump, it's not, as you said, Doug, it's not a it's not a connection to connection. It's not a device to device. It's a whole bunch of things. It's the accelerometer, it's Bluetooth, it's Wi-Fi, and it's and it's your 3G signal gets sent up to the server, and it looks for a similar pattern, similar activity at the exact same spot, your location, and then it assumes that you're talking to that one phone, and it does the exchange. It's pretty cool. It's not just stupid Bluetooth connecting to one phone to another. A lot of smarts going up, a lot of smarts going down. So they know all of this information. They know that you're bumping in a Starbucks or you're at a conference, and what kind of information can you be fed around that conference that now is inferred because of all of the contacts that you're making there, or how spread across your family are, and could you do an affiliate model where you're in Toronto, I'm in Ottawa, but because we bumped, I know it's your birthday. Those kind of things, and it might seem small revenue, but with 12, 20, 30 million users, that adds up quite a bit. We saw with Shazam, they do $100 million a year in just iTunes referral fees, right? So can they do this? Is that a potential for revenue, or is that too small thinking?
Yeah, so that music idea of like, oh hey, your friend that you just bumped with has similar tracks to you, but they have the latest album of the band that you both like. Because you're using Bump, we can get you a deal on that album for $5 right now,
sure,
and it'll go directly to your iCloud. I think is pretty powerful. But then, even the opportunities like getting discounts in Starbucks because you connected in Starbucks. It's almost
or loyalties.
Like checking in, yeah. Like
loyalty. Like I always think about downline. I always think about how am I an influencer, and this is a perfect example of an application that can do that. Is that if I bump you or we connect at a Starbucks, we're tagged at that Starbucks. So every time that I go to that Starbucks, you get credit for it, right? If you had been tagged there before. And then everybody that I tag at that Starbucks, now it's kind of a daisy effect, where all of a sudden you, who haven't been in that Starbucks in 2.5 years since you moved to Toronto, you're still getting credit. You're still getting some kind of cred for being there. You get points, loyalty points, whatever it is, because of your influence.
What if they start bumping Starbuckses?
Yeah.
What if businesses start having their own contact information or items to share through Bump? And then
bump to get the tune, bump to buy the tune, bump to buy. Yeah, you can do anything.
Yeah, and then to your point, because it's location based, but it's not dependent upon immediate location. Once you've bumped that store or that product, you're connected for life. So if there's a deal or a discount later on, they can just share that information with you.
They get it too. And with a tie-in, I mean, they did this with a tie-in. It was bump to pay with PayPal. Could you not do something like with an Amex so that it's tied in directly to your Amex card or your bank card so that you don't even see the discount, it's just applied? Because I think that's where that seamless transaction has to happen. And I don't want to always have to bump to get my discount. I just want it to be there. And maybe that's the way you bump a brand. Wow, yeah. Dave, if you're listening to this, man, bump brands. Free. We just gave you that free.
I'm sure he's sitting somewhere in the dark stroking a cat, listening to everything we're saying. But
exactly.
So I think that's completely right, and I think there's a lot there, and I think the fact that once again it's a software solution, so all the stuff around QR codes or NFC or all the technologies that people are trying to use to make this connection, which are totally dependent upon infrastructures that'll never be built because it's a chicken and egg situation, could be really served by an app on an iPhone. Yeah. The barrier to entry is a little difficult, but so getting back to just the core idea we started with, the simplicity, the narrowing of the focus. We've just listed off a variety of different ways that they can use their app to monetize, assuming they get to a certain amount of users. What's the one that they go after? What's the big low-hanging fruit that they start with?
Well, I mean, I think you hit it, Doug. I think this is a brand play. I think that's what they do. I think it's brilliant. I think that is the way that they can make money, low level. They've got data. They've got a ton of data about you, and I think that there's, for me, data is king. Data is worth so much more than the app or the users or anything that happens in there. But they've got to have a use for that data. There's got to be a reason for it. But I believe that you combine that data with the bump of a brand, and you have an unbelievable opportunity to drive a ton of revenue. Loyalty cards, all that kind of stuff, all through the Bump app.
Okay, so the two, I like this, and I think we should kind of end on it, but just two things maybe for people to think about as we go, because we obviously don't have the answers to this.
We just found it, man. We just
we just came up with it.
We're gonna totally start donk.
Yeah. Chronicle donk. Reference back to an earlier episode. So the idea, just coming to me, if bumping brands and connecting brands are the way to go, the first thing is, because it's such an immediate and continuous connection that's very, as we were saying, more personal than just basic data sharing, you're gonna have to be really careful about what brands you connect with as a user, right? Because you don't want to just start getting bump spam with deals and things like that. Second of all, if they do it correctly and there's higher retention that way, and people really enjoy bumping their, even their just favorite boutique stores or things like that, not even big brands like Starbucks, does that displace what Foursquare is trying to do with their location and deals and monetizing that? Because innately there's a more personal connection than trying to map Foursquare location data and check-ins and things like that onto the immediacy.
I think the difference between the two is one is a self identification method, which is like, I love that brand. I'm gonna bump Starbucks or a boutique or Bruce Springsteen, whatever it is, right? I'm gonna do that. And Bruce, if you're listening, let's bump, dude. And I mean that in a totally platonic way.
And without hip hop.
Yeah. Without no rapping, but I think that it's a voluntary action. Is that I'm going to bump this because I want this kind of information. I think that what Foursquare is doing is moving very much into the discovery space, which is, okay, I'm in the middle of this place, find me a burrito, right? And I think that it's much more of it's brand agnostic versus a brand ownership for the consumer side. And I think that's the difference. That's where I think Foursquare is going, is that discovery thing. And eventually you could leave it. You could lever bump into Foursquare and say, listen, I want more information from that brand. So I do that. It's a save to Foursquare from a website, and then I land in New York, and one of the restaurants that I'm interested in going to is in New York, and I get a notification through Radar. This is where you want it to go. I get there. I love it. I bump it. I think that it's a handoff to a deeper brand engagement.
Yeah, because I don't think Foursquare wants to deal with that, right?
No.
So we're saying that the ultimate app is Bump Square.
Is Bump Square.
Or
it's not Donk?
It's not Donk.
It's Bump Square.
Code. Yeah, Bump Square.
Man, well, we'd be very interested to know what you think about this. Do you see a future for Bump? I know there are a lot of people, as I said, that are very angry with this latest update, saying don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But you can understand the need to pull back and go back to simplicity to find that sweet spot. And maybe that's what they've done here. Maybe they're going to reintroduce some of these features. But as Doug says, probably when there's more of a user base, a stronger user base. Although 12 million. If you can't turn that into revenue, I'd be worried. Is the future of bumping the brands? What do you think, Doug?
I think we got to get David back on the show.
I'll get David back on the show. We'll see what he says. But we love your comments. Reach out. Look at these little comment buttons down there. It's a little discuss button down there. Just click on it. Leave your thoughts wherever you find this. We'd love to hear what you think about Bump. Can they make money? Are you a user? Are you disappointed with this latest release, or do you see potential after this conversation that Doug and I have had?
And is there something that you want us to ask David that we're missing?
Yes, we'll get Dave back on here. He's still speaking to me. It's our ultimate goal to get Mark Andreessen as well. So I've interviewed every single one of Andreessen's companies. So we'll get Dave back on here, and we'll ask him these questions. Let us know. I think we've just solved the world's challenges, at least Bump's challenges. Go bump a brand. This has been Where's the Money? Any feedback you got, let us know. If you want us to feature a company, let us know. We want to bring it on. We want them on the show. Thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate it. Douglas?
Bye, Mrs. Woodbridge.
That's right. Our one viewer. Thanks, Mom. Later. I think your mom watches too, right?
My mom barely knows how to use the internet, although she's all over Foursquare. Gave it to her a year ago so she could just track me, and now she's earning deals for the family at restaurants and things like that. She's gone insane. But no, she doesn't even know what I do for work.
It's better that way.
Yeah.